I will make a statement on the government's economic response to the war in Iran and the action that we are taking to support families and businesses with rising costs. Madam Deputy Speaker, the government has the right economic plan. I said I would grow the economy, and last week the Office for National Statistics confirmed that Britain's economy was the fastest growing in the G7 for the first quarter of this year. We beat the Office for Budget Responsibility's forecast in the spring, with economic growth at 0.6% in the 3 months to March. And because of the resilience of our economy, this week the International Monetary Fund upgraded Britain's forecast for this year. I said I would cut borrowing. Borrowing last year was £20 billion lower than the previous year, and the latest forecasts show it falling in every year of this Parliament. The IMF has backed our economic plan, saying that the government's fiscal framework strikes, and I quote, a good balance between deficit reduction and growth-friendly spending. I said I would cut the cost of living. Since the election, interest rates have been cut 6 times. Real wages have continued to rise in every single month since I became Chancellor. And yesterday, the ONS confirmed that inflation fell in April faster than expected, making the UK the only G7 economy where inflation fell last month. Madam Deputy Speaker, we have the right economic plan, but the conflict in the Middle East poses a significant challenge to the world's economy, including our own. I have not shied away from my criticism of the war. I believe it to have been a mistake. Nor have I ignored the costs that it will bring to bear on the British people. I have been clear-eyed about my duty to do what I can to support families and businesses, to be responsive to a changing world and responsible in the national interest. Next week, Ofgem will confirm the level of the energy price cap that will apply from July. I know that any increase will be felt by families. Because of the decision that I made at the budget last year to cut £150 from energy bills, we have lessened the impact of rising prices, and current external forecasts suggest that the cap from July will be at a similar level to the cap in April last year. We stand ready to act if market conditions worsen significantly later this year, and I have been leading cross-government contingency work on design of potential future targeted and temporary support. For businesses, any support will also need to be carefully targeted at firms most exposed to the crisis. But while many firms have been insulated from recent price rises through fixed-price contracts, there are sectors that face particular structural issues related to energy costs. That is why we have already increased support for our most energy-intensive industries through the British Industry Competitiveness Scheme, and we've brought that forward. And it is why we have also built resilience in our critical infrastructure and industrial strategy sectors, where supply chains are critical for growth and security. Following representations from my right honourable friends, the members for Redcar, Mid Cheshire and Bathgate Linlithgow, and building on the good work of the Minister for Industry, I am today establishing a £350 million Critical Chemicals Resilience Fund to support strategically important producers. And having listened to my right honourable honourable friends, including the members for Stoke-on-Trent Central, North and South, and my honourable friend, the member for Amber Valley, and workers represented by the GMB Union, I am today announcing a new £120 million fund to help our historic ceramics sector, helping them to increase efficiency and drive down energy costs, because we will always stand up for British industry and for British jobs. The government has also this week set out additional targeted support for those businesses most exposed to rising fuel costs. For hauliers, the government is granting a 12-month road tax holiday for HGVs, saving the typical heavy lorry up to £912. To support farmers and the rail freight industry, I have decided to cut duty on red diesel by over a third until the end of this year. And having heard from my honourable friend, the member for Oldham West, Chadderton and Royton, and the trade union Unison, I can today announce a 10p per mile increase in tax-free mileage rates, backdated to April 2026, benefiting those who need to drive for work, from care workers to plumbers. Madam Deputy Speaker, when a country faces challenges because of higher oil and gas prices, we must ensure that those who benefit from increased prices and volatility pay their fair share. In my first budget, I extended and increased the Energy Profits Levy. Last year, I announced a new permanent windfall tax regime on oil and gas prices. Last month, I increased the electricity generator levy, alongside further action to weaken the link between high gas prices and electricity prices. Today, I am bringing forward specific changes to the taxation of foreign branch profits, changing how companies are taxed in relation to their overseas activities. Currently, some oil and gas groups that operate overseas through foreign branches have structured their tax affairs in a way which ensures they pay little or no corporation tax on their UK energy trading profits. Today, we are putting an end to that practice. We expect these reforms to raise hundreds of millions of pounds a year and fund the package of measures set out today, with costings certified by the OBR forecast in the usual way. Madam Deputy Speaker, I know the pressure that family finances are under. That is why I have already taken action to provide help. I increased the national living wage and the national minimum wage to their highest rates ever. I have frozen prescription charges for 2 years in a row, and I've frozen rail fares for the first time in 30 years. I've taken £150 off energy bills, which contributed towards the fall in inflation last month. But I want to go further, and today I am taking further action to ease the burden on family finances. First, on fuel duty. I have already extended the 5p cut twice since the election, and I can confirm today that there will be no rise in fuel duty this year, recognising the pressure that the war has put on fuel prices. Second, I know that the cost of the weekly shop is often one of the biggest worries for families. So last month, I met with supermarkets to urge them to do all they can to keep prices low. And today, I am taking action by suspending tariffs on over 100 different foods sold in supermarkets. And I am clear that I expect supermarkets to pass these savings on in full to their customers. And third, I will not tolerate any company exploiting the current situation to make excess profits at consumers' expense. So I am bringing forward tough new powers so that the Competition and Markets Authority and other regulators can take action when firms break the rules. Fourth, for many families, driving is not always an option. Buses are the most popular form of public transport in Britain, with over 4 billion journeys made last year. I have already extended the £3 bus fare cap to March 2027, and today I can confirm that bus travel across England will be free for children aged between 5 and 15 throughout August. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I recognise that what matters for families is not just getting by, but being able to enjoy time together without worrying about the next bill. That is why I am launching the Great British Summer Savings Scheme to help families and support our hospitality sector. So I can today announce a temporary cut in the rate of VAT on summer attractions from 20% to 5% over the summer holidays. This will apply to ticket prices for both adults and children, covering attractions such as fairs, theme parks, zoos and museums. It will include children's tickets for cinemas, concerts, soft play and the theatre. And it will cut the cost of children's meals in restaurants and cafes from 20% VAT to 5% as well. These changes will apply across the UK, from the start of the Scottish school holidays on the 25th of June and run until the end of school holidays in England, Wales and Northern Ireland on the 1st of September. Madam Deputy Speaker, this government has the right economic plan. We promise to grow the economy, and we have. We promised to cut inflation, and we have. And we promised to cut the cost of living, and we are. Promises made by a Labour government, promises delivered by a Labour government, and I commend this statement to the House.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And could I thank the Chancellor for advance sight of her statement, though, of course, the press got even more advance sight of it. Madam Deputy Speaker, the decision taken to cancel the increase in fuel duty is welcome. It has been a long time coming. The Conservative Party has been campaigning against the fuel duty rise for months, but the Chancellor has defended that policy repeatedly. That left motorists and businesses worried about even higher fuel prices in September. It was always obvious that the fuel duty increase would need to be cancelled, obvious to everyone except the Chancellor. So can I ask, why did the Chancellor fight us on fuel duty for so long? Why has she been so hell-bent on raising fuel duty during an energy crisis? Well, inevitably, Madam Deputy Speaker, the U-turn has finally come. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, it is astonishing to hear the Chancellor claiming that the government can afford to help households because the forecasts have improved. Is the Chancellor seriously suggesting that the economic outlook is now better than at the time of the last fiscal forecasts, when we have had the Iran conflict, to which our economy is highly exposed thanks to this government's ruinous choices? The Chancellor has just pointed to the IMF forecast being upgraded this week. But let's be very clear about what is going on here. The IMF adjusted their growth forecast for this year up slightly to 1%. But until April, they were forecasting 1.3%. So where exactly is the supposed growth dividend? Will she directly address that point? This is exactly the same game that the government played last year when they U-turned on cuts to the winter fuel payment. They claimed then they were U-turning because the economy was improving, when of course it was due to political pressure. Nobody brought it then, and nobody is buying it now. Once again, we have a weak government caving into the inevitable after spending months defending a truly terrible decision. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Chancellor claims the measures announced today will be funded by a number of different tax measures. But most of the measures she mentions are already in place and baked into the OBR's forecasts. So given the Chancellor has not announced any measures to control government spending, can she confirm that, in fact, the measures she is announcing today will be funded at least in part by yet more government borrowing? And can she confirm whether fuel duty rates will still be rising to the same level as previously planned after December, or whether today's announcement will mean a permanent reduction in fuel duty? Madam Deputy Speaker, whilst we on this side of the House welcome some of the measures the Chancellor has taken today, like the increase in mileage allowances, this is all very minor compared to the inflation this government have fuelled since coming into office, and the tax rises that the Chancellor has imposed. Today's announcements will bring little comfort to the hundreds of thousands of people who have lost their jobs, to the countless businesses that have folded, and to those high streets which are now hollowed out. The reality is that we are in a terrible position to deal with the consequences of this latest energy crisis, thanks to the actions that this government has taken. The Chancellor claimed growth is up. It is actually down. She claimed borrowing is down. It's 75% up compared to the plans that she inherited. She claimed she's fighting inflation. We have the highest inflation in the G7. She claimed she's cutting energy bills. Energy bills have gone up under this Labour government. And of course, she didn't mention unemployment. On the energy, Madam Deputy Speaker, on energy, this government have made a conscious decision not to exploit our own natural resources in the North Sea, weakening our economy and our energy security, whilst importing oil from Putin's Russia at the cost of Ukrainian lives. Families and businesses are facing rising costs and rising taxes. People are losing their jobs. The country is hurting. If the Chancellor was serious about the challenges we face, she would commit to getting spending down, tackling the benefits bill, getting taxes down to strengthen our economy. But thanks to the Chancellor's mistakes and the weakness of this dying government, this statement today is all we get. Does the Chancellor really think this is enough?
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Let me take the issues that the Shadow Chancellor has raised. First of all, on fuel duty. When I became Chancellor of the Exchequer, the freeze in fuel duty was due to expire under the plan set out in the final budget of the Conservatives within a matter of months. I've frozen fuel duty twice already, and I've frozen it again today. And indeed, I've frozen it with more than 3 months to go before the increase was due to happen, giving people plenty of time. I have always said since the Middle East conflict began that I would keep an eye on what was happening to oil and gas prices and set out plans ahead of the change due to come to effect in September, and that is exactly what I've done. But I've also gone further in 3 specific areas, with additional support for hauliers, additional support for red diesel, particularly helping the rail, freight industry and farmers, and also the higher mileage rates. And the Shadow Chancellor says he welcomes the changes on mileage rates. Well, it's the first time they've been increased since 2011. So if he welcomes them so much, why didn't they increase them when they had 14 years in government? On the Iran conflict, well, let's remember that this is a war that the UK did not start, that this government chose not to join, whereas the Conservatives and Reform were cheering on that conflict every step of the way. And the impacts on the UK economy and the global economy would be much more severe if we'd have heeded the warnings of, heeded the pleas of Reform and Conservatives to join that conflict. The Shadow Chancellor talks about inflation and growth. Well, inflation, yesterday, the numbers showed that inflation had fallen. We're the only country in the G7 where inflation fell last month. The IMF have revised up our growth forecast, and we had the fastest growth of the G7 in the first quarter of this year. And the Shadow Chancellor says, is this going to be paid for with new borrowing? No, it's not. If the Shadow Chancellor had been listening, he would have heard the changes we're making around the foreign branch exemption. That will raise hundreds of millions of pounds a year, which is why we're able to afford the package that we have announced today. The Shadow Chancellor mentions high streets. Well, because of the Pride in Place money that I announced at the budget, because of the banking hubs, and indeed because of the changes we made to business rates, which have actually seen business rates for retail and hospitality come down, and come down significantly compared to the plans we inherited from the Conservative government, we can reinvigorate our high streets. The Shadow Chancellor mentions borrowing. Well, borrowing has fallen below 5% for the first time since 2019 because of the actions that I have taken as Chancellor, and borrowing is expected to fall in every year of this Parliament. Very different from what happened under the Conservatives. Employment and activity remain in the top half of the OECD and of the G7. And the biggest benefits boom came under the last Conservative government when the Shadow Chancellor was the Work and Pensions Secretary. And on oil and gas will play an important role in our economy for many years to come. But we also need to invest in renewable energy, which is why we announced yesterday restrictions in the number of judicial reviews that are holding up investment in clean energy. It is a shame that the Conservatives voted against our Planning and Infrastructure Act. It's a shame that the Liberal Democrats abstained on it. But we are determined to get Britain building, including the energy infrastructure we need to get built. bills down. And just a couple of weeks ago, I announced changes around tiebacks to make it easier for oil and gas companies to exploit their reserves of oil and gas in the North Sea. And Jackdaw and Rosebank would have gone ahead if it hadn't been for the last government messing up the way it's legislated. And we are going to be announcing shortly the decisions. The Secretary of State for Energy and Net Zero will make those decisions. But I am very clear. Oil and gas will play an important role in the UK for many years to come, adding to our energy security alongside investment in nuclear, in small modular reactors, in floating offshore wind, in onshore wind and solar, opposed by the party opposite.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, it never fails to amaze me that the Shadow Chancellor tries to lecture this government on inflation when many of us were here in September 22 when his party crashed the economy. I welcome my right honourable friend's interventions, and I'm particularly interested in the cut in VAT in the leisure sector. And I hope that she will be commissioning a full study from the Exchequer Secretary about the impact on this, because it could be a great way to fuel and promote and keep going our stretched leisure and hospitality sector. So will she commit to that?
I absolutely agree with my right honourable friend that we'll take no lessons from the party opposite on inflation when it reached more than 11% when they were last in office. In terms of VAT on the leisure sector, we are making these changes from the 25th of June right until the 1st of September to help boost the hospitality sector, but also to help families, crucially to help families during the summer. Our expectation is that this will cost taxpayers money, but it is funded through the changes we're making around the foreign branch exemption so that companies can't book losses overseas to avoid paying their fair share of corporation tax here in Britain.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I do feel as though we're slightly through the looking glass. For 6 months, we Liberal Democrats have been calling for an emergency temporary VAT cut for hospitality, leisure and attractions, and our pledge was fully funded. For weeks, we have been calling for an emergency transport package fully funded using the additional revenue from higher VAT rates and the EPL levy as well. But for all this time, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have been told repeatedly that it was impossible to do these things, that there was no additional money. And somehow the prospect of a by-election in Makerfield and the Prime Minister's political life on the line means that the money has now been found. But let me ask the Chancellor 2 questions. First of all, on food. I genuinely welcome the government's focus on the cost of food, because this is an issue of huge concern to many of our constituents in all political parties here. But can I please ask the Chancellor whether there is any risk at all that short-term gain may result in any long-term pain? By looking at these tariffs, has the Chancellor had any conversations with the food manufacturing industry about whether they can remain competitive, whether there's any risk that removing these tariffs might inadvertently undermine our food manufacturing sector? And if there is any risk, whether she would look at our plans for a good food bill and promoting nature-friendly farming? And I ask that question in the spirit of constructive opposition. And secondly, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Chancellor and her ministers will know that we are due to have a very hot summer, and that means that outdoor attractions will have huge demand because children will want to be outside in this hot weather. Indoor attractions, such as soft play centres, will not benefit so much because there won't be much demand in the summer months, but there will be demand in the winter months. And so could I ask the Chancellor to look very carefully at the differences within the attraction sector, because children are priced out of play when they need to go indoors in the winter months, not so much in the summer months. Thank you.
I thank the Honourable Lady for those questions. I'm not sure whether she welcomes the changes around the foreign branch exemption or not, which is what is going to pay for these policies today, ensuring that companies pay their fair share of tax here in the UK. But it is important that we always say where the money is going to come from, because unless you can do that, all it results in is higher inflation and interest rates in the future. And that's why I've always been clear that everything I will announce is always going to be fully costed and fully funded. On food, you can't say you both welcome and think that we need to help with the cost of living, but then you're a bit uncertain about tariff reductions. But we have focused these tariff reductions on food products, agri-foods that we don't produce in significant quantities in the UK, and we've worked very closely with the Department for Business and Trade in identifying those sectors. On the issue of summer activities, indoor and outdoor, well, I've had enough family holidays in the UK to know that there are plenty of days when it's raining, and I'm sure that the leader of the Liberal Democrats will be visiting a soft play centre soon.
Gareth Snell.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I declare my chairmanship of the APPG for ceramics? Can I thank the Chancellor for today's announcement, and can I also thank the work done by the Right Honourable Member for Hove and Portslade and the Minister from Stockton North for their support. This is a really big step towards support for a sector that offers so much to this country. And can I thank Sharon Yates and Finbar Barry from the GMB, as well as Rob Frello and Hannah Rolt from Ceramics UK for their leadership in this. But could I extract from the Chancellor a commitment that this is the next stage of a new partnership between the UK Government and UK Ceramics, because today's announcement will absolutely help us survive. But with more working together, we can thrive as a sector and do our bit to boost exports, boost growth, and create well-paid unionised jobs in this country.
I genuinely want to pay tribute to my honourable friend for the work that he's done on behalf of businesses and working people in his own constituency. And along with the other Stoke MPs, the MP for Newcastle-under-Lyme and the MP for Amber Valley, you've made the case powerfully and convincingly. And I can absolutely commit today to work with Ceramics UK, the GMB and the MPs and the wider sector to make sure that the ceramics industry does indeed thrive in the UK.
Stuart Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On the tariffs, I want to explore what the Chancellor said on significant quantities, because what is a significant quantity for a supermarket can be a completely different scale for a small South Shropshire farmer. Can the Chancellor guarantee that no South Shropshire farmers are going to be undercut by these tariffs, and none of the supermarkets will pass on these cost cuts to British farmers?
It is really important that we help our constituents with the cost of living, and the tariff reductions that I've announced today will save the British shopper £700 million. That is a significant reduction in the cost of the weekly shop for families across our country. But we've carefully chosen these tariff lines, and the full details will be published. We'll be consulting over the next week or two to make sure that we get these exactly right, but we've worked hard to make sure that this does not affect British farmers, and it's also indeed why we're helping British farmers with the changes we've made around red diesel today.
John Grady.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome my right honourable friend's statement. It's great news for the cafes and restaurants in my constituents, of which there are many, and to the showmen. There are very many showmen and women who run Scotland's and Britain's great fairs as well. I know the party opposite object to all of this. It is the party opposite that left us with debt to GDP of almost 100%. And there's nothing progressive in running debt levels like that, and the Chancellor is right to focus on paying that debt off. Many of my constituents in Glasgow East rely on cars and vans to get to work and do their work. They face extortionate charging for parking in town with the SNP Council, which is utterly anti-car, and regular bills for repairing their cars and vans from all the potholes. Would my right honourable friend set out how she is helping hard-pressed car and van drivers in Glasgow?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and he's absolutely right. There is nothing progressive about piling up the debt that future generations will have to pay, and that is why our fiscal rules are getting the debt and the deficit down, whilst also enabling us to invest in our country's infrastructure and public services. In terms of helping people with the cost of driving, we have frozen fuel duty until the end of this year, but recognising that some people rely on their car cars and their vans more than others. We have also taken off the HGV tax for this year, saving HGV drivers up to just over £900 a year. We have cut the duty on red diesel by more than a third, and for those people employed and self-employed, we've increased the tax-free mileage rates to help them with the cost of fuel too.
Dr Andrew Mirison.
Deputy Speaker, the announcement on red diesel will be welcomed by my farming constituents, and they will await details on the tariffs that she has cited with a great deal of interest and with a certain amount of trepidation. But will she acknowledge that a third of the world's fertilisers pass through the Strait of Hormuz, and the increase in the price of that fertiliser is bound to have an impact on British agriculture and therefore on prices in the shops? So what will she do to relieve some of that, in some cases existential pressure on farms in the United Kingdom?
I thank the honourable gentleman for that question, and I would urge him and also businesses, farmers in his constituency to look at the list of products and make sure that feed into the consultation over the next week or so. We are obviously keen to bring these tariff reductions into effect to reduce the prices in the shops for all of our constituents, but we want to do it in a way that is respectful of British farming, which is why we've chosen the tariff lines that we have. And we are, as the honourable gentleman recognises, doing more to support farmers with the reduction in red diesel. The best way, though, that we can help all of our constituents and the farming sector and others is to bring this conflict to an end and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which is why the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary are working intensively with international partners to do just that, and at the same time working to diversify our supply of oil and gas so that that fertiliser that the honourable gentleman rightly refers to is still available for our farmers.
Lindsay Farnsworth.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Chancellor honestly for her statement. As she has mentioned, and many members of this House will be aware, I've been campaigning hard for the ceramics sector with a view to saving Denby pottery. And I want to thank the Ministers in the Treasury and Department for Business and Trade for their ongoing engagement through the many meetings that we've had on this point. So I'm delighted to hear about the £120 million support package today. This is a clear indication that the government is supporting and backing UK ceramics, and it will make Denby pottery a more attractive prospect for any potential investors. But with this in mind, the current circumstances that Denby pottery faces, can the Chancellor please commit to ensuring that the funding is available as soon as possible in the hope that Denby can be saved?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, but most of all for all the work that she does on behalf of all of her constituents, but particularly those at the moment impacted by what is happening at Denby. It was my privilege to come to Amber Valley with my honourable friend just last year to meet businesses from across her constituency. We are backing UK ceramics. We want to find a future for Denby, and we will continue to work with my honourable friend to achieve just that.
Alistair Carmichael.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I remind the House of my entry in the Register of Members' Interests. Last year, Madam Deputy Speaker, suckler beef farmers in my constituency were getting paid £7.30 per kilo for their finished product on the hook. Yesterday that was down to £5.75 and it is still falling. The price paid to dairy farmers for their milk is through the floor. Arable farmers are struggling after two catastrophically bad harvests. The red diesel cut is welcome, but that will not help farmers who are struggling with rocketing prices for fertiliser, or indeed those who are requiring to heat glass houses. Opening the door to ever wider to food imports risks undermining domestic food production. So if food security genuinely is national security, surely our food producers and manufacturers should have access to the same support as other critical sectors. So will the Chancellor look again now at adding food and drink to the government's industrial strategy so that they can have access to the same support as other sectors?
I thank the honourable gentleman for that question, and I know as chair of the Select Committee he'll play a key role in scrutinising what the government are doing. Red diesel will have an immediate and important impact on the costs for farmers, with a reduction of more than a third in the rate of duty. I also appreciate the fact that his party, like the government, did not support the conflict in the Middle East and recognised that it was a mistake that would have an impact on businesses here at home. And that's why we are doing everything within our power, both to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to ease these pressures on consumers and businesses, including farmers, but also in the meantime to diversify supply and opening up new refining facilities in the UK to help businesses, including farmers, during these challenging times.
Dr Alison Gardner.
Madam Deputy Speaker, and the Potteries welcome this statement today. Madam Deputy Speaker, I have been working with local companies, with the TUC, GMB and research organisations to develop proposals to support the ceramics industry to innovate, improve energy efficiency and decarbonise. And I have previously called on the government to release an industrial energy innovation fund for energy-intensive industries, with government grants to explore process efficiency and new technologies, as well as vouchers to access shared pilot facilities. Could the Chancellor therefore clarify that part of the £120 million funding announced today could be used by ceramics companies to access and invest in innovations such as AI-enabled process optimisation and energy technologies to help reduce energy bills?
I thank my honourable friend and all the MPs involved in helping put together this scheme of support for ceramics, and like my honourable friend, welcome the work of the TUC and GMB in this. Look, innovation and ensuring that the industry is sustainable and competitive for the future is absolutely essential. This isn't just a sticking plaster policy. This is about setting up the industry for the future, including investment in innovation and R&D, and also the diversification of energy supplies.
Kirsty Blackman.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. In oil and gas jobs, the UK is losing 1,000 jobs a month. The Chancellor is aware of this, and we have made it very clear to her that we are keen to move to the OGPM as soon as possible. We would urge her to do that. In the foreign branch profits section of the announcement today, would the Chancellor let us know whether or not they have modelled the job losses that may occur as a result of this change in policy, and if she can tell the House how many job losses she thinks might occur because of this change in the oil and gas taxation regime?
I thank the honourable lady for her question, and like I said in previous answers, I recognise the role of oil and gas in the UK and its importance to the UK for many years to come, which is why we have changed the rules around tiebacks and why we've put in place a permanent mechanism for taxing windfall profits. But look, the honourable lady has to answer the question, is she in favour, and is her party in favour of the foreign branch profits exemption or not? Because if she's not, then she can't support can't back the support we're giving today to help people with the cost of living and the support that we're giving for ceramics today. But in terms of what this does, it means that we are moving in line to how other countries treat foreign profits. Because at the moment, you've got the absurd situation where losses overseas can mean that businesses avoid paying their fair share of corporation tax in the UK. This moves us in line with what other countries world do. It is closing a tax loophole, and the honourable lady and the Conservatives should welcome that.
David Williams.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and what a day to be a Stokey. Now, as the Chancellor knows, my mum proudly works in the pot banks of Tunstall and Burslem, and 10 weeks ago I asked the Prime Minister in this place what support the government could offer our ceramic sector. Well, the good news is my mum's watching again right now at home. And she's clearly happy because I've had a free-word text and it says, "Nice one, Duck." So can I ask the Chancellor how we will make sure the £120 million support package benefits ceramics companies of every size, from our Moorcross to our Moorlands, from our steel arts to our Churchills, so that we protect jobs, skills and the future of our economy?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for that question. And can I say to Mrs Williams and all those who work in the ceramics sector, I'm proud to be the Chancellor that is backing British industry and British jobs.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Back in March, the Chancellor announced the £50 million Crisis and Resilience Fund to help families out with the price of heating oil, which is a big issue in rural constituencies such as mine in Huntingdon. Does she have any plans to extend that scheme or to repeat that scheme come the autumn, given that we are likely to have a similar crisis with the Strait of Hormuz still being shut? And to what extent does she anticipate that the Russian oil that will come via a third country under Commodity Code 2710 will form part of that fuel mix?
Yesterday, we introduced the toughest set of sanctions that this country has ever had on Russia. But like the previous government, we are phasing those in so it doesn't have a disproportionate impact on industry here in the UK. That is what the previous government did, and that is what we are doing as well. The honourable gentleman mentions heating oil and support for people. We were pleased to be able to introduce that targeted support based particularly in those areas that are particularly dependent on heating oil. We're doing a piece of work at the moment to see how much money has been used by local authorities. I know that some have been more proactive than others in ensuring that local residents get the support they need. Once we've completed that, we will look at whether and what further support is needed.
Adam Jurgey.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I welcome this statement and the action that those of us in ceramic communities have been calling for, and I thank the Chancellor for announcing it. This is a good day for all of us in North Staffordshire, Madam Deputy Speaker. There is a ceramics business, as it happens, from Newcastle. I'm sitting in the gallery watching this statement, so I welcome them, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I ask the Chancellor to assure us two things? One, that the eligibility for the support in this scheme will be as wide as possible, and that it will be as easy as possible to apply for.
Well, I'm pleased to know that a business from Newcastle under Lyme from the ceramics sector is here today, and I'd say to them directly, this government has got your back and wants to work with you and the trade unions that represent people in the sector to ensure that the ceramics industry plays an important part in British life, particularly in those pottery communities for many years to come. And of course, we'll be setting out the details of the scheme, but like the MPs for Stoke, Newcastle and also Amber Valley, this government is very keen to crack on with the scheme and make sure that businesses can get the support that they deserve.
David Mundell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Could the Chancellor expand on her discussions with the supermarkets and their role in keeping prices down? Because there is always a concern that when the supermarkets make special offers or reduce prices, rather than absorb the cost of doing that themselves, they pass those on directly to farmers and their suppliers, who are not in a position to absorb those costs because of the fixed costs that they are required to make in terms of their production costs.
The honourable gentleman makes a really important point. Today, I've set out a number of measures that will directly help the supermarkets reduce their costs. And it's really important that those cost reductions are passed on directly to consumers. So reducing the cost of running an HGV will have a direct impact on our supermarkets. Reducing tariffs will have a direct impact on the costs of our supermarkets. And also the trade deal that we're looking to do with the EU to reduce the costs of importing food from the EU will have a direct impact on the cost of supermarkets. I say to the supermarkets, those cost reductions must be passed on directly to consumers who are struggling with the cost of living given the conflict in the Middle East.
Adam Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Chancellor for her statement, and particularly given her VAT cut on theme park tickets, first invite her and all honourable members to join me on my annual trip to Alton Towers this summer. Madam Deputy Speaker, Erewash has many great summer events as well for families to enjoy, like Long Eaton Carnival and the Classic Car Show and the Glow Festival in Ilkeston. But entertaining kids during the summer months can be daunting and expensive for parents. Can the Chancellor elaborate then, please, on how measures she is announcing today will support Erewash families and boost great community events?
oblivion here.
My only worry with this package, it will ensure that children badger their parents even more for those days out over the summer, and I slightly worry about what I've unleashed in my own household. But I'm pleased to announce today that trips to Alton Towers and other activities, whether it be soft play, fun fairs, zoos and museums, if many kids want to go to those, not mine probably, sadly, will be cheaper this summer because of the action that this government is taking.
Robert Jenrick.
Deputy Speaker, the Chancellor's approach to the cost of living crisis is to find small ways to subsidise people's costs. Isn't the best solution to build a strong, abundant economy by doing the hard yards of supply-side reforms, where there are better jobs and higher wages, where people are richer and the state has less bearing on their lives? And yet, under the Chancellor, the benefits bill is ballooning, unemployment is rising, particularly amongst the young, and taxes are at their highest ever level. So in the spirit of giving people some relief today, will the Chancellor confirm that, assuming she intends to stay in office for the rest of this Parliament, she won't be increasing taxes on working people at all for the rest of this Parliament?
I will take absolutely no lessons from the man who was part of a party that took our economy to its knees. Inflation at 11%, working people worse off at the end of the last Parliament than they were at the beginning, the worst Parliament ever for living standards, and for a party that has opposed all of the reforms that we have made to make it easier to get things built in Britain, to increase the wages of working people with the national living wage and the national minimum wage, to increase the rights of working people, including statutory sick pay from day one, and ending the abusive zero-hour conflicts. So if we want a lesson on economics, I certainly won't be taking it from the Reform Party.
Josh Newbury.
Speaker, the Chancellor's announcement of a £120 million support package for ceramics will, of course, be welcomed in Stoke-on-Trent, but also in Rugeley, in my constituency, which is home to many workers of the Armitage Shanks factory in the constituency of my honourable friend, Member for Lichfield, who is a staunch advocate for them. Would the Chancellor agree with me that it is only this Labour government that is putting in the investment that firms like Armitage Shanks need? And would she agree with me that iconic British brands like this should play a central role in new homes to boost them even further?
Yeah. I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I'm pleased that people in Rugeley and people working for Armitage Shanks will also benefit from this investment. £120 million to support our ceramics sector is a clear intention of this government to back British jobs and British industry.
Afra Brandreth. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. While I welcome some of the measures announced today, the reality is that instability in the Middle East has a direct impact on the UK economy and on the price paid by British households. Can the Chancellor therefore outline what steps her department is taking to work across government to ensure a stable region, including boosting our defence spending? Will she finally commit to 3% spending this Parliament and working collaboratively towards reopening the Strait of Hormuz?
I do think it's a little bit rich for anyone in the party opposite to talk about the instability from the Middle East conflict, a conflict they wanted Britain to join in from day one, a conflict that our Prime Minister made the decision to keep Britain out of because that war was a mistake and it's having an impact on British businesses and British families. I'm proud to be the Chancellor that has overseen the biggest uplift in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We're spending £270 billion during the course of this Parliament, taking spending to £2.6 billion by April next year. The Conservatives said they'd get to 2.5% by the end of this Parliament. They had no paid-for plans to do so. We are achieving it 3 years early.
Naz Shah.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. First of all, can I congratulate the Chancellor on the announcement that she's made? We are very, very welcome. For people in Bradford West, the Great British Summer Saving Schemes, the GBSSS, will go down an absolute treat. Would she agree with me this will always also benefit the hospitality industry, which has been struggling for years in my constituency and across the country?
Well, we all listened to my honourable friend's response to the King's speech last week when we heard about the great restaurants in Bradford. And I'm pleased to say that children's meals in those restaurants will see their VAT fall from 20% to 5%. So all honourable members who are looking forward to a curry in Bradford can enjoy Mumtaz, Agras and all the other great restaurants in her city.
Excellent. Ellie Chan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to start with the positive. So I know that care workers in my constituency of North Herefordshire will really welcome the increase in mileage rates. And I welcome the measures that the Chancellor has announced, which seem to be starting to tackle profit shifting, which is a key problem in terms of tax avoidance. However, does the Chancellor not recognise that struggling families need help year-round, not just short-term sticking plasters in the summer holidays? The Green Party is calling for free bus travels for everybody under 22 year-round. We're calling for free school meals for all children to help all families year-round. The cost of living crisis requires year-round action. This could be funded easily by taxing wealth fairly. Will she take that year-round, bold action to tackle the cost of living crisis properly?
I thank the Honourable Lady for that question and her welcome for the changes around mileage rates and also profit shifting. Obviously not all parties in the House welcome that, and I appreciate the fact that hers does. But we are helping working people. The Renters' Rights Act is the biggest upgrade in rights to renters in a generation. The Employment Rights Act is the biggest upgrade in rights to working people for a generation. We've taken the national living wage, the national minimum wage to their highest ever levels, and for working families getting rid of the 30 hours childcare, the free breakfast clubs, the extension of free school meals, but also getting rid of the 2-child limit. All of that is putting money in the pockets of working people, and the measures that I've set out today on bus fares, on fuel duties, on VAT and hospitality and more in the statement today will give further help both in Herefordshire and around the country.
Dave Robertson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The announcement today of the £120 million fund to support the UK ceramics industry will be so welcome in my part of Staffordshire. Armitage Shanks is often not considered in the same breath as ceramics, partly because of the excellent advocacy of the Stokies, of the members for Newcastle under Lyme and Amber Valley. But actually ceramics goes much further than flatware, and the sanitary ware that comes out of Armitage Shanks is world class. But it is much, much, much more than that. It is the identity of that village, and it is an iconic British brand. The Chancellor's support for Armitage Shanks and the rest of the ceramics industry will go down so well, not just with those workers and the GMB workers who are part of that factory, but also with my community. So can I thank the Chancellor for her intervention?
Thank my honourable friend for that question, and he's absolutely right that ceramics play a life in so many parts of our economy, not just in great heritage businesses like Denby, who produce plates and other ceramics, but also, as my honourable gentleman has set out, and in sectors like defence and aerospace, where ceramics are absolutely crucial, and that's why I'm pleased to be able to back them further with the £120 million package today.
Joe Robertson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The conflict in the Middle East is not the Chancellor's fault, but she has chosen this time to make it more expensive for my constituents to take a car from Fishbourne on the Isle of Wight to Portsmouth. Will she do the right thing and scrap the emissions trading scheme levy that she intends to bring in July of this year? It shouldn't only be Scottish Islands that are exempt.
Well, the measures that I've taken today will help people on the Isle of Wight. We've frozen fuel duty now for the third time, compared to the plans we inherited from the previous government would have seen it go up. We're helping farmers with red diesel, we're helping the rail freight sector, and we are also supporting HGV drivers. And of course, the Isle of Wight is a place where many people go on their summer holidays and enjoy wonderful days out, and so the costs of that will also be reduced, helping the sector in the Isle of Wight this summer.
Jim McMahon.
Can I thank the Chancellor for this important statement, not least of all because the previous government failed to act on HMRC mileage rates for the 14 years that they were in power, watching as motoring costs went up year after year and doing absolutely nothing for the self-employed and frontline workers like home care workers. It shows the power of a union like Unison and that we have a Chancellor who is willing to take the action needed to support working people. Can I ask her, ahead of the fuller review, will the backdating of these measures support both the self-employed and employed workers alike?
I want to pay tribute to my honourable friend who raised this in Treasury questions just a few weeks ago. I committed then to looking at this ahead of the next budget, but given the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, I thought it was right to bring those changes forward and increase for the first time since 2011 the mileage rate. And I can assure my honourable friend that for home care workers, for plumbers, for all those who use their car for work, we will increase the mileage rate by 10 pence, backdated to April 2026 for employed and self-employed workers alike.
Ms Savile Roberts.
People are very aware that President Trump's war with Iran is worsening the cost of living, but there are measures within the gift of the government, long-term measures which could improve heating costs for households. In North Wales and Merseyside, we pay the equivalent of £255 a year on standing charges. That compares with £160 for London. When will she be addressing this structural inequality in heating costs?
In the budget last year, I reduced energy bills by £150, and just a few weeks ago, I put in additional money to help people with the cost of heating oil. The issue around standing charges and those allocations is one for Desnes, but I will pass on her concerns to the relevant ministers.
Lee Ingham.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the Chancellor for her statement today. For those of us who are really serious about buying British, building British and backing British, this is a really welcome announcement. And I know the Madam Deputy Speaker will also be interested to find out if the Chancellor could say a little bit more on how she believes this will help the British brickmaking sector.
I thank my honourable friend for that question and for always standing up for the people of Stafford, whether that is bringing a market back to the town or supporting the brickmaking sector. This government are investing £120 billion more in capital spending during the course of this Parliament compared with the plans that I inherited from the previous government. And I'm determined that as that money is spent, whether in defence, in energy, in transport or in building schools and hospitals, that money is spent here in Britain, creating good jobs, paying decent wages, supporting British industry and supporting British workers.
Sarah Bull.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Food inflation is forecast by the Food and Drink Federation to reach at least 9% by the end of this year. And energy costs are driving up this, along with a lot of the other anti-business policies this government is putting forward, including not incorporating food manufacturing into the industrial strategy. So when will this Chancellor realise that announcing things like capping supermarket prices of food is just like flower arranging whilst the roots of the flower is dying?
The honourable lady says that we should extend the industrial strategy. The previous government didn't even have an industrial strategy. And I would say that £700 million of tariff reductions is not exactly fiddling at the margins. Those costs should be passed directly by supermarkets on to consumers to help all of our constituents with the cost of living.
Clive Efford.
Deputy Speaker, can I congratulate my right honourable friend on a summer package of savings for families. It will not only give relief to those families that perhaps have booked domestic holidays, but also give a welcome boost to our domestic leisure and entertainment industry. But can she say a little bit more about how we intend to pass on the savings of her tariffs cuts through supermarkets? Too often we've seen them take a cut and a slice off of the reduced costs to them. How do we ensure that all of those savings get passed on to our constituents?
Well, I remember when I was young, I used to enjoy visits to Chislehurst Caves and Eltham Palace, and I hope that they'll be able to benefit from the changes that I've announced today. But on ensuring that supermarkets pass on these cost reductions to their customers, it is important that they do that, as well as the changes that we're making around HGV duties as well, because that too will reduce costs for supermarkets. And it is important that supermarkets recognise the pressure that their customers are under at the moment. But we have also provided additional powers to the Competition and Markets Authority to ensure that no business, whatever their size, whatever their nature, takes advantage of the conflict in the Middle East to hike prices for their customers.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Madam Deputy Speaker, youth unemployment is now at 5%, and on current form it will rise to 5.8% by next year, which will mean a very large number of young people without work. What actions can she take to ensure that young people do get access to jobs, do get access to careers, and not the deeply distressing experience of leaving school, college or university and being unemployed? And a disproportionate number of young people rent in the private rented sector. So could you do something about bringing in much needed rent regulation in the private rented sector also?
We have already increased the number of apprenticeships, and changes to the growth and skills levy means that you don't always have to have a maths A to C and English A to C to get on an apprenticeship programme. We've also introduced shorter apprenticeships to help young people get the skills they need. And on private rents, the honourable gentleman might have seen the changes that we made through the Renters' Rights Act, which gives renters the greatest rights they've had in a generation, including the right to challenge a rent increase and to only have one rent increase a year. And can I tell honourable members on all sides of the House, if you challenge your rent increase and take that to tribunal, you will not have the rent increase during the course of that tribunal, helping limit rent rises for hard-working families.
Florence Eshalomi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Chancellor for this wonderful set of measures, and I'll go one further than my colleague from Merriwash, who isn't here, and invite her across the bridge to some of the greatest attractions in the UK, ranging from the London Eye, the South Bank Centre, London Aquarium, and even Paddington's Experience, which will all benefit from this wonderful VAT cut, an issue that we've been raising for many months, so it's good to see action on that. I went to visit John Ruskin Primary School in my constituency this morning in Camberwell, and if we think that the impact of what is happening isn't affecting young children, it is. Those children were so articulate in raising questions around oil and gas prices and prices in the supermarket. So can I thank the Chancellor for actually addressing this? And just to follow on from the question, how will the CMA be monitoring the impact in the supermarkets? Will there be regular updates to the Treasury? Obviously, there are non-governmental ministerial department, making sure we are really making sure those prices are being passed on to hard-working families.
I can confirm to the Honourable Lady that the London Eye will be included. Apparently it is called an observation attraction, and we decided that observation attractions should be part of the package of measures. The Exchequer Secretary and I made sure that that was the case. I totally agree with what the Honourable Lady says about young children at primary schools as well, having a deep understanding of the cost of living pressures that their families and carers are facing at the moment. And that's why it's so important that today's measures particularly address the cost of the summer holidays for parents, because whether in Vauxhall or in my own constituency of Leeds West and Pudsey, I know that parents are not always as excited about the summer holidays as perhaps their children are, because they're worried about the costs. And I hope that the measures that I've taken today around the cost of meals, children's meals in restaurants and cafes, and also reducing the costs of those days out will go some way in helping families have a better summer.
Neil Duncan-Jordan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome my right honourable friend's announcement today, but I would like to ask her to look further at introducing a package of emergency measures to keep down energy bills through a number of ways: an essential energy guarantee for all households, a nationwide social tariff, and extending the windfall tax on the energy sector's excessive profits.
When I became Chancellor, I extended the energy profits levy to 78% on gas and oil, and as a result of that we will be able to bring in money because of that. We've also increased the electricity generators levy by 10 percentage points to help decouple gas and electricity prices. And because of the measures that I took in my budget last year, year, I was able to take £150 off of people's energy bills. I recognise the impact of the cost of living on families and pensioners and also on businesses, which is why I've introduced a further range of measures today, particularly targeting and helping families, energy-intensive industries and also those who drive a lot for work.
Marsha de Clover.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I thank the Chancellor for her statement and also welcome the measures that she is taking that will have a huge impact and support many of my constituents and also businesses in Battersea. And she's also very welcome to come and visit Battersea. We have wonderful hospitality there as well. But as we are living in increasingly unpredictable global landscape, it is vital that we are working with some of our closest allies. And that's why I welcome the European Partnership Bill that was announced in the King's speech last week. But will the Chancellor continue to explore ways to strengthen our economic relationship with the EU as a means of promoting stability, security, particularly in the light of the current financial pressures as a result of the Iran war?
Well, the measures that I've set out in my statement today will absolutely help the hospitality sector and the entertainment sector in Battersea, whether it's zoos, cinemas or restaurants. But my honourable lady is also right to point to the economic benefits, both in terms of reducing inflation and boosting jobs and growth from a closer relationship with our nearest neighbours and trading partners in the EU. And that is why we are currently negotiating an ambitious agreement to reduce the costs of bringing in agricultural, food and farming products from the EU, but also increasing markets for British farmers in the EU, as well as a youth mobility scheme, Erasmus and the energy trading and electricity trading across the European Union.
Calvin Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the Chancellor's, the measure the Chancellor has set out today, particularly those which will help small businesses like Noted Pie Mash in Leighton, Homies and Donkeys in the Stone, Bear Brew and City Place in Wanstead and Fresh as a Daisy in South Woodford. And I look forward to seeing their children's menus so that they can benefit from the measures that you've set out today. But what more? Can I ask the Chancellor what more she is doing to support hard-pressed families in Leighton and Wanstead, and in particular those families that also rent in the current cost of living crisis?
I very much hope that families in Leighton and Wanstead, but also businesses in Leighton and Wanstead, can benefit from the changes that I set out today. I know that the cost of renting, especially in London, is very high, and the Renters' Right Act should give greater certainty and stability to renters, but also limit rent increases as well. In addition, families in Leighton and Wanstead will benefit from the 30-hour free childcare offer, the abolition of the 2-child limit in universal credit, as well as free breakfast clubs being rolled out to primary schools. And from September this year, straight after the summer holidays, all children whose parents or carers are on universal credit will benefit from free school meals.
Lillian Jones.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm proud this government is backing British industry, from today's announcement on ceramics to British steel. But can I ask my right honourable friend if she would look at possible measures to support the UK wood and timber sector, who are facing challenges such as price volatility, rising costs, supply chain pressures and missed productive tree planting targets?
I thank my honourable friend for that question. Today, the measures will help ceramics and they will also help the chemicals sector. But other schemes, whether that is the supercharger, the British Industry Competitiveness Scheme, will benefit other sectors across the economy. And I'm sure that the relevant minister would be happy to meet with my honourable friend to discuss the issues around wood and timber specifically.
Hannah Baxter.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I declare an interest as someone who worked for Unison immediately coming to this place, and their contribution to my campaign is in my register of interests. I worked as a trade union official for over 20 years representing public sector workers. One issue that came up in pay negotiations year after year was mileage rates, particularly for frontline social care workers, because as the cost of living and fuel prices rose, those frozen mileage rates effectively imposed a stealth cut on workers already delivering vital public services. So on behalf of them and the thousands of frontline workers across Scotland, can I warmly welcome the Chancellor's decision and announcement today? And can the Chancellor confirm that she's spoken with her counterparts in the new Scottish Government to ensure that the levers of power that they have control over are similarly focused on cutting the cost of living for my constituents in Paisley and Renfrewshire South?
Thank my honourable friend for that question. The increase in mileage rates for employed and self-employed workers will have a material effect on those who need to use their car for their work every day. And this is, of course, the first increase since 2011. Alongside the Employment Rights Act, this is giving greater rights, greater certainty and greater incomes to ordinary working people. And I would like to pay tribute to the trade union Unison for their lobbying and their work on this issue over many, many years.
Peter Swallow.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. When I speak to families in Bracknell Forest about the school holidays, they often tell me it can be bittersweet. The opportunity to make treasured memories and spend time with their children, balanced against having to juggle childcare and work, and of course the cost of living pressures that come from keeping their children entertained. So the measures that the Chancellor has announced today on VAT cuts for summer attractions will make a real difference. Can I simply take this opportunity to ask the Chancellor to encourage people across the country to make use of the fantastic leisure facilities in Bracknell Forest, including the Lookout Discovery Centre, South Hill Park and of course Playworld Soft Play as they make advantage of this new scheme.
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I hope that families in Bracknell, whether they're enjoying a day out in Bracknell Forest or going on a summer holiday to one of the great seaside towns across our United Kingdom, will benefit from these changes. As well as entertainment, it will also make lunch or dinner out as a family a little bit cheaper as well. And when kids go back to school in September, if their parents or carers are on universal credit, whether they're in nursery, primary, secondary or FE, they will benefit from free school meals for parents that are on universal credit.
Sean Woodcock.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank my honourable friend for her statement, and especially the measures to support farmers and hauliers. Banbury has a thriving logistics sector with brilliant businesses like TWE Haulage. I visited them last month and I know that they will really welcome the measures that she has announced. I would ask that she and her colleagues, however, continue to keep under review the particular pressures on the logistics sector and be open to any other further measures that may need to be forthcoming.
I thank my honourable friend for that question. And of course, the best way to reduce cost pressures on families and businesses is to get the Strait of Hormuz reopened and those vessels carrying oil and gas flowing again. But of course, in the meantime, I will keep under review the support that is necessary to support businesses and families in Banbury and across the country.
Catherine West.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and could I welcome the tone both of yesterday's announcements at the petrol pump and today in the House, fighting for working people every day. Thank you. Could I also ask whether ice skating is included in the measures, because Alexandra Palace has the most fantastic ice skating rink, and I do hope that they're included in the measures so that children visiting London, as well as London children, can enjoy ice skating slightly cheaper this summer and a lovely meal to boot.
Thank you, my honourable friend, for that question. I will have to check ice skating. I like to pride myself on being on top of my brief, but I do not know whether ice skating is included or not. I did, however, know about the London Eye.
Jonathan Brash.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Following a successful sale to the LB Group, chemicals firm Tioxide is planning to reopen its Greetham plant in Hartlepool. So the £350 million Critical Chemicals Resilience Fund is a real boost at exactly the right time for this Hartlepool employer. Can the Chancellor say a little bit more about how this fund will work to promote jobs and growth in Hartlepool?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and businesses in Hartlepool and actually across Teesside will be some of the biggest beneficiaries of these changes around chemicals, and the Minister for Industry is now in his place, and again I'd like to just pay tribute to him for his help in setting out this package of measures today. The Department for Business and Trade will shortly be setting out the details of this scheme, but I can assure my honourable friend that includes help both with capital and day-to-day costs, with the aim of making the sector more sustainable and lower energy intensive in the future to make it increasingly competitive. But we recognise the important role that the chemicals sector has in the UK, and we're determined to ensure a bright future for it.
Andy MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I too want to thank the Chancellor for his statement, but particularly the announcement of the £350 million Chemicals Resilience Fund. But as a consequence of the Iran war, energy prices of 16% and food prices of up to 7% are predicted by the Bank of England. So I very much welcome the Chancellor addressing the cost of living crisis, and in particular the steps to help families this summer, including bus fares for children, which will be welcomed in Middlesbrough and Thornaby East. But on that point, no doubt we'll monitor and evaluate the dividends of that travel offer, and therefore will the Chancellor consider whether the long-term free travel initiatives elsewhere in Europe have translated positively in terms of economic engagement and growth and could be replicated here. And opposite the retail sector cries this week, could she advise further on what voluntary pricing arrangement might do for living standards on a core basket of supermarket goods, as was introduced in France in 2023? Thank you.
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and absolutely businesses in the chemical sector in Middlesbrough will benefit from these changes. A lot of the focus in the package today was around food costs and transport costs, whether that is the cost of kids' meals in restaurants and cafes, the reduction in tariffs, and indeed the support for transport, whether you're travelling by car or indeed by bus, recognising that those essential costs are the ones that families fear most when they are increasing. And yes, of course, we will monitor the impact of this. We do, however, expect the range of measures that I've set out today to have a cost to the Exchequer, and that's why I've also set out today the foreign branch exemption changes to ensure that all businesses pay their fair share of tax. Just specifically on the supermarkets that my honourable friend mentioned, the Co-op last November announced on the back of my budget that they were cutting the costs of 1,000 products because of the changes to business rates that beneficially impacted them. And last week, the Co-op froze the price of more than 40 essential products and have committed to work to keep them down. I welcome those measures by the Co-op, and I hope that other supermarkets also heed the calls of their customers to keep prices down and to take advantage of what I've set out today to reduce their costs and pass them directly onto consumers.
I am going to try and get all members in, but please can I encourage members to ask very short questions. There are two more statements and the main business to come this afternoon, and we're getting a little tight on time. Alex Baker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome this announcement from the Chancellor and the statement today, which will mean that it will be cheaper for families across my community to go to theme parks, farms and soft plays this summer, thanks to this Labour government, and I will see them there because my children have a long list of places they want to visit. On these days out, our families get to choose between eating out or taking a good old picnic. Can the Chancellor bring to life the decision she's made today, how that will ensure that we have families that can have full tummies as well as lots of fun and excitement this summer?
I thank my honourable friend for that question. We are both helping to keep prices down in the supermarket, but also when families have a day out, reduce the costs of lunch at a cafe or restaurant. And having met my honourable friend's kids out on the campaign train in Aldershot, I think that a couple of days out not delivering leaflets would be very much in order.
Phil Brickell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy
Speaker. Can I congratulate the Chancellor on what is a really ambitious and comprehensive package of measures to support families across my Bolton West constituency? And as a long-standing proponent of a fairer taxation system, can I thank her for the measures she has put forward in closing the tax loopholes that have been used by oil and gas firms to structure their affairs and avoid paying hundreds of millions of pounds into the Exchequer, which will now finance this package of proposals to support families. She mentioned a little bit about the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority. Can the Chancellor say a little bit more about what engagement she envisages having over the coming months to make sure that we won't see profiteering going forwards?
Thank my honourable friend for that question. Closing tax loopholes has been a feature of the first two budgets I've delivered as Chancellor, whether it is closing the loophole whereby private schools didn't pay VAT or business rates, increasing the energy profits levy, increasing the tax on private jets, and a range of other measures to ensure that those, especially with the broadest shoulders, pay their fair share of tax. In terms of the Competition and Markets Authority, they are already, at my behest, doing a review into heating oil to make sure that customers using heating oil are treated fairly, and we are introducing the Fairer Fuel Finder to ensure that customers can always get the best deal when filling up their car with petrol.
Emma Lewell. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank my right honourable friend for the package of support she has announced today. She knows firsthand that hospitality is what my little town does best. My hospitality industry, fairground and constituents will be very happy today. But could I please ask her to clarify, as I'm not sure, if the 15% VAT cut applies to all restaurants, cafes, pubs, bars and hotels serving children's meals, and could she please keep under review extending this very welcome VAT cut to the hospitality industry as a whole? I've very happy memories of having fish and chips with my honourable friend in her constituency several years ago, and I can confirm whether it is a pub, a hotel, a restaurant or a cafe, for children's meals the VAT will be cut from 20% to 5% between the 25th of June and the 1st of September. We will monitor the impact of this both on tax revenues and on the number of people going out for dinner. We do, however, envisage that this will have a cost to the taxpayer, which is why we are funding it by ending the tax loophole whereby some companies were using losses overseas to offset their corporation tax here in Britain. Emma Foodie. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Families across my constituency will be relieved to hear the measures today set out by my right honourable friend. Whether it is the freezing of fuel duty, free bus travel for young people this summer, or suspending the tariffs on essential food items, all action that will be greatly welcomed by families who were very worried about the impact the Iran war was going to have on household finances. But can the Chancellor set out how much she envisages these measures combined will save families in the North East, and that she will keep under review these measures, including on energy bills ahead of the winter?
Thank my honourable friend for that question. I know that people in more rural areas, like some of her constituency are, will particularly benefit from things like the reduction in fuel duty and also the freeze in fuel duty and also the free bus fares for kids. We think the changes in fuel duty have already save people around £100 a year and expect the same sort of benefit thereafter. HGV drivers will benefit by up to £912 through those changes. Bus fares, the bus fare changes are unlimited free bus travel for 5 to 15-year-olds, and of course you add in the savings as well for days out and meals out. But most of these things, all of these things are unlimited. You can go on a bus as many times as you like. You can take your kids for a meal and benefit from that reduction in VAT as much as you like. We want people to have an enjoyable summer, worrying less about the costs and more about making happy memories.
Chris Webb.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The plans outlined today by the Chancellor are going to be a massive boost for families in my constituency, but also the hospitality and tourism sector. I'm sure she'll agree with me that we have some of the best attractions in the world in Blackpool, including the best theme park in the United Kingdom, Blackpool Pleasure Beach, who today are launching their record-breaking 8.7 million new ride, Evictus. Since the Chancellor has made her statement, my phone has not stopped from businesses, theme parks and organisations across the town welcoming this news. So, from behalf of them and myself, can I invite the Chancellor to Blackpool this summer to see the positive difference these policies will be making in our town and see firsthand the potential that we have?
I'm really excited about what is happening in Blackpool, and obviously leading up to the 100th anniversary of the Blackpool illuminations in 3 years' time. I very much look forward to my next trip to Blackpool. I don't say that I only eat fish and chips, but I also remember a very happy meal of fish and chips in his constituency during his by-election campaign.
Serena Breckenridge. Deputy Speaker, parents, grandparents and carers will know that keeping children busy during the summer can feel like an expensive endurance event. Will the Chancellor assess the economic and social value of the Great British Summer Package of Savings, particularly its impact on opening up access to museums, cinemas, libraries, sports facilities, theatres, theme parks and attractions, building children's cultural capital and life experiences, whilst also supporting local economies in Wolverhampton, Willenhall and across the country?
As I say, it's spoken like a proper former teacher there, expanding the cultural capital of our children. That's what my children want to do every weekend. But whether it is expanding their cultural capital or having fun at a theme park in Blackpool or in Alton Towers, I want children and families to be able to enjoy this summer. And also as a former teacher, my honourable friend will know that the summer holidays, whilst welcome relief for teachers and for children, often for parents, can be a time of worry, and I hope that these changes today will make the summer holidays a bit easier for all families.
Claire Hazelgrove.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. People across the Filton and Bradley Stoke constituency work hard, and being able to enjoy time together as a family this summer is important for everyone. I know the Chancellor's announcement today on summer savings for families, including on popular attractions and free bus travel for children, will be warmly welcomed at home. Could the Chancellor please set out how the decisions she has taken to stabilise the economy have made this possible for the government to fund?
I thank my honourable friend for that question. It is important that all policies that we set out are fully costed and fully funded, which is why we've made the change around the foreign branch exemption to fund today's package of measures, but also because of the reduction in reduction in inflation during to the measures I set out in my budget last year, and because the strong growth we've seen, the fastest in the G7 in the first quarter of this year, make this package affordable and sustainable, and that's why we're able to set out this support today.
Lola McAvoy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I wholeheartedly welcome the Chancellor's intervention in this cost of living that is increasingly putting struggles on working families in Darlington. This is a proper Labour intervention from a proper Labour Chancellor, and representation matters in this House. As I look around, I can see Stoke represented through the ceramics industries supported. I can see Redcar, Middlesbrough, Stockton represented and those industries supported. So not only has this Labour Chancellor intervened to make sure that families in my constituency can have a much better summer, but their jobs will be secure for much longer. So thank you.
I thank my honourable friend for that question. And this package was not just designed by me, it was designed by honourable and right honourable members in this House who have made representations to me about the cost of living, but also about the specific business needs and business challenges in their constituencies. So whilst I'm proud to be able to be the Chancellor that's delivered this package today, I also want to pay tribute to all members who have contributed to it.
Jessica Toll.
Speaker. I want to congratulate the Chancellor on her skillful management of our economy in what are extremely difficult international circumstances, because despite this, growth is up, inflation is down and borrowing is down. And can I particularly welcome the Great Britain Summer Savings Scheme? This will make a huge difference to families and businesses in my Bournemouth West constituency. But families will continue to worry about their day-to-day bills, so can the Chancellor reassure my local constituents that the fuel duty freeze and the reduction in tariffs on foodstuff will be felt directly in their pockets?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and absolutely the freeze-in fuel duty will continue until the end of this year, and we'll keep it under review depending on what happens in the Middle East. And the tariff reductions it's very important that those, and also the HGV duty changes, that those cost reductions are passed on to customers. I also am slightly worried after the statement that I've unleashed a competition between honourable and honourable members about whose constituency has the best summer attractions, whether it is soft play, theme parks, zoos, ice skating, or being lobbied by the right honourable member for Redcar about lemon tops in her constituency. I look forward to this continuing ahead of the introduction of these VAT reductions on the 25th of June.
Cat Eccles. Speaker, can I welcome the announcement from my right honourable friend, in particular the suspension of import tariffs on more than 100 food and drink staples. I know my constituencies across Stourbridge, Brierley Hill and Netherton have been struggling with the cost of a weekly shop. But while we all enjoy a treat, myself included, it was disappointing to see the headlines leading with biscuits and chocolate when there is a public health crisis with obesity and diabetes. So could she assure the House that the government remains committed to the healthy food standard which encourages supermarkets to promote healthy choices? And will the Chancellor work with the Secretary of State for Health to ensure efforts to tackle poor diet and obesity remain a priority alongside the cost of living?
Yeah. There's a whole range of products included in the tariff reductions, including imports of tropical fruits, of bananas, of olive oil and much more. But I expect that honourable and right honourable members would be forgiven for every now and then wanting to have a chocolate biscuit after a day of work in this place.
Tracy Gilbert.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I welcome the measures that my right honourable friend announced today, which will help ease the cost of living pressures on families in my constituency of Edinburgh North and Leith, and on the very many businesses and attractions that are there, and in time for the Scottish school summer holidays. You're always welcome for fish and chips that are award-winning in my constituency as well. Earlier in this year, the government set out welcome plans to break the link between the wholesale price of gas and electricity. Can my right honourable friend provide an update on these plans and how this will help reduce bills over the long term?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I'm sure that her constituents in Edinburgh North and Leith will benefit whether they are enjoying attractions in the Scottish school holidays or indeed whether it is people from the other nations and regions of the UK or indeed from further afield enjoying the attractions of Edinburgh this summer. On the specific issue around delinking between gas and electricity prices, this is both a short-term and a long-term measure, because in the short term we have increased by 10 percentage points the electricity generators levy to bring in more money this year, and then we are renegotiating contracts to move electricity prices onto contracts for difference to have greater certainty around electricity prices, so that the gas price does not set the electricity price so frequently, giving greater stability of energy prices to businesses and families.
Moraz, Madam Deputy Speaker. Inflation down, wages up, interest rates down and growth up. These are the reasons why the Chancellor can make these announcements today. They won't say it on the benches opposite, but I will. Thank you, Chancellor. As she mentioned in her statement, the British Industrial Competitive Scheme is an important support for that economic growth. But at the moment, it excludes the vitally important critical minerals sector, which, as she knows, is directly relevant to my Camborne, Redruth and Hale constituency. Would the Chancellor meet with me to discuss energy support measures for the critical minerals sector?
I'm absolutely committed, as my honourable friend knows, to the critical minerals sector. We've already introduced the Kerno Growth Fund for Cornwall and also have instructed the National Wealth Fund to invest more in critical minerals, including in the huge opportunities there are in tin and lithium in Cornwall. We need to ensure that we have more diversified supply chains for critical minerals and rare earths, and Cornwall gives us a great opportunity to do exactly that, and I look forward to continuing working with my honourable friend and the other MPs in Cornwall to ensure that we can bring good jobs, paying decent wages to the region.
Alison Hume.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The news that bus travel will be free this summer for children is extremely welcome. Does my right honourable friend agree that this is a golden opportunity for East Yorkshire buses and Transdev to boost summer capacity, ensuring that children from deprived communities in Scarborough are not squeezed off the buses by tourists travelling to the coast for a great British summer.
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I would absolutely encourage bus companies to use this as an opportunity to increase the services that they are able to offer this summer as they cater for more young people on their buses. And I'm sure that many honourable and right honourable members will have enjoyed days out at the aquarium in Scarborough and also dinner at the Magpie in Whitby, which they serve very good fish and chips.
Andrew Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And of course, you will be aware that the best summer attraction is the Northwich Pina Colada Festival, which is enjoyed by boys and girls of all ages. But nevertheless, I thank the Chancellor for her statement. The relief she's providing to the chemical industry will be welcome to sector businesses in mid-Cheshire, whose expertise and innovation contribute significantly to both local employment and national resilience. I've previously spoken about the rising input costs and regulatory challenges these businesses face, and I look forward to hearing more about how she should consult with the industry on the fund's eligibility. Does she agree with me, though, that the forthcoming summit with the EU presents an opportunity to bear down on regulation further by seeking alignment and mutual recognition on UK and EU reach?
I'm slightly worried that someone's going to do a point of order about what age you're allowed to enjoy the Pina Colada Festival. But yes, we absolutely will be consulting on chemicals and ceramics to make sure that we're giving the right support for businesses. But we don't want a long consultation to get in the way of actually getting the support for businesses. My honourable friend also makes an important point about our trading relationship with our nearest neighbours and trading partners. We're proud to be a government that have done trade deals with the Republic of Korea, with the United States, with India, and yesterday with the Gulf countries. But the biggest prize is a trade deal and improved trade relations with our nearest neighbours and trading partners with the EU. We'll make progress on that, I hope, in the next few months.